Well, my name's Keyvan Moussavi. Thanks for coming. I'm with Spring Hill Real Estate. I'm a licensed agent. And I'm also with K-One Design Build. K-One Design Build was started by Gina Moussavi. She's also my mother. And so it's a family-owned business. Sarah is my wife, so she handles contracts and so forth. Natalie is not related to us by blood, but through experience. And so the purpose of these talks that we've been doing on a monthly basis, we decided to do this because we feel like the public has to learn about these things. So a couple of months ago, Benny Poole, our great friend, came over and he talked about financing. So if you're interested in acquiring a home and building a second floor addition or doing a reno and things like that, what sort of options do you have in terms of financing for enabling you to do something like that? He also talked about financing for new homes, pros and cons, and things of that nature. And so every month we're going to have a different topic. This month we're going to talk about building a new home. And when we were working on these things, for us, it's second nature, right? It's so easy. We're like, okay, we'll cover this in 1 hour. Like, no, everyone would be asleep. So we're actually going to cover a single sliver of what it takes to build a new home and the scenarios and things like that. And it gets a little technical, and I think that's a plus because we want homeowners, agents to be aware of these things. We want them to be educated, and so that it's a better process for them. There's less risk and things like that. Thanks for coming. So the agenda is, just like before, just want to go, it's essentially the same numbers, right? It was last month. And then typical progression into new home ownership in terms of a build of a new home and, strategy, types of new homes, planning and acquisition, financing, selecting a contractor, designing and building. And then we have a worksheet. But again, doing this, I don't know if we'll have any time to go over the worksheet, but we'll hand it out so that you guys can go over it later. And then if you have any questions, you guys can contact me, the team, and so forth. Okay, so a little disclaimer, legalese. Us presenting this doesn't mean we're representing you at all in any shape or form. If there's any legal stuff that we talk about here, we're not legal experts. We're just giving you, our experience and things like that. So, just that. Thank you, Spring Hill, for letting us use this building. Appreciate it. Santiago, as always, facilitating and, spreading the word. Natalie, thank you very much. And JDM Title, always helping us. So appreciate it. Okay, state of the market. So as we talked last time, we don't have too much inventory. So we have a bunch of people right now who are, and it depends region by region, right? So I read something today that there's actually more inventory in Falls Church than other places, which I was kind of surprised by, that there's more homes than buyers. And so maybe that's an issue of pricing and things like that. But that was kind of surprising. But essentially, inventory is low, and there's buyers who want to buy these, move into other properties, and so they're settling on, whatever type of property that they can get their hands on. In terms of rates, you may be able to get lower rates than this, but this is just something I grabbed off of the internet from Bankrate. And so rates are, reasonable. We're not seeing 8% depending on your credit score and things like that, but they're around that range. Something interesting recently happened, which is the Fed discount rate went down 0.25%. It's too soon. We didn't see any impact on interest on mortgage rates. Mortgage rates actually went a little up. And so the impact of that, we're not going to see this anytime soon, but it's kind of unknown. I just wanted to put that in there in case no one heard of that. So that's kind of the scenario. And then this is, a general look at what happens in this area, right? Somebody graduates from college, just general, right? They start renting something after graduating from college, and they end up meeting somebody, and then they move. They don't have much money, so they move into some home because there's limited selection. It could be a Rambler or something, and then somehow they eventually end up in another home that's, an infill lot, we call it, but essentially you've built a new home. So stay with me. I'm going to go over this process and how this happens, but this is kind of, I just want to set the scene that it's, a general thing. If you guys have any questions, stop me. I want you guys to stop me, ask questions so I can dig deeper in something like this and share your experiences. So these people, they're in this whatever home, and they're like, my family's growing. We need more space. We need more features and functions. I don't have a basement. I want a basement. We get people over the holidays, and we need more space. So the ideal scenario that we want as general contractors is for people to go through this thought process that I'm going to go through. The whole reason why we're doing this, because this, gets them ready, it primes them. And so what we want them to do is think, okay, maybe we need a new home, right? So we're thinking that the scenario that we talked about last month, they're just going to say, no, we don't want to do a second floor addition. We don't want to do such and such remodeling and whatever. We need a new home. It's just not going to work here, right? And so they've come to that realization, and what we want to have them think about is, before going this route, which is sell our home, move into some other spec home or whatever, or maybe do some other sort of construction, is talk about, okay, the home that you're in, is it in an ideal location, right? Is it near a nice school system? What's the lot like? Is it getting flooded on a regular basis? Are there a ton of trees there and trees are falling? Does it need clearing? Which that is doable. That's not a big deal. Are there zoning constraints? So are there setbacks? Is there somebody behind you that doesn't have a driveway and they have an easement through your property? Are there site constraints, like in Alexandria? You can't build a basement in some parts of Alexandria. Why? There's high water table. And so some places you just can't build basements, or it's clay, junky soil that you can't, just do that. So this is kind of the thought process that we want people to establish first, and then say, okay, if we need a new home, what do? We got our existing home, let's break it down and put a new home on top of it, right? From scratch. And there's benefits to that. But again, it's we only have 1 hour. So I'm going to focus on this one, which is, a brand spanking new lot. There may be a home on there. There may not be a home on there. But, we're going to focus on something like this. So they're going to sell their home and move into a brand new home on a brand new lot. Any questions? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? Okay. So the different types of lots, right? So there is the tear down with utilities, right? So you got gas, electric, water, everything over there. That's nice. You got bare lot, no utilities. That's harder. I'm going to focus on that. There's bare lot with utilities. So maybe there was a home there, someone tore it down, they put it back on the market, they're selling it, or maybe the landowner said, okay, I'm going to rezone all these things. I'm going to bring utility to these lots, and I'm going to sell it because this brings the value up for these lots. It's easier, right? Bringing gas to a lot can be $30,000. Bringing electric can be $30,000. Bringing water can be fairly expensive. So that brings more equity into the lot. Is it a bare lot with electric only, right? no sewer, no gas, no nothing. And we've ran into those. Anything else that you guys can think of? Any other sort of lot? No? Underground lot? No? All right. So when you think about the lot, then the other thing you have to, this is a must, and the reason why I'm bringing this up, inspirations, is because we see a lot of homes being built in traditional neighborhoods that are just, they don't fit. It's an eyesore, right? They may look super modern, and the neighborhood is completely traditional. That I think that is a detriment. So when homeowners are thinking about new homes and building it and design and inspirations and things like that, they have to mind the neighborhood. That's just best practice architecture and civil, minding the surrounding of where you're going to be, and copying that and making sure that the home meshes. Why? Because even though it's your home, the resale of it can actually be impacted by the type of architecture that you put in. Now, we have clients that come to us, and clients hire us, it's their money, and they'll say, build this here. And we have no choice. We're like, well, it doesn't matter, build it. Okay. So we'll do that, but that's just our duty to our clients. But there's different architectures, right? There's modern farmhouse, energy efficient. There's more traditional colonial-ish sort of designs and things like that. And so typically what we've seen from a statistical perspective is that classic design wins the most. So when it comes to having a modern home and a classic design side by side, the classic wins it. People think, oh, this is a modern home. This has, metal roofing. Da, da, da. Like, no, the numbers don't say that. The numbers show that the classical one actually wins the most. And so, welcome. There's food here too, right? And so then the search happens, right? So now that you've thought about the inspiration, oh, I want this sort of model, sort of design and things like that. I want it to look like such and such. Then the other thought process that we want our clients to have is the must-haves, right? So you guys as agents and the homeowners who are interested in finding these lots, these are the things that we ask they consider. So obviously the school system, that's really important. For some people, it doesn't matter because they may put their kids in private school. They may go buy a $2.2 million home and like, well, I don't care where I am. I'm just going to go put them in Gonzaga or wherever, But school system is still important. Locality and closeness to things. So we have clients who, live near Crystal City 2 blocks away, and they're like, that's amazing. We want to stay there because I'll walk 2 blocks and I'm near all the restaurants and things like that. So, obviously zip code and commuting is a big consideration, and being walking distance to things, square footage of lot and home. So square footage of lot matters a lot because it matters because the counties in this area have gotten really particular about water runoff and hard surface ratio of square footage of lot to how much impervious area you're actually bringing to the lot. So someone may go buy a lot and they'll think, oh, I'm going to drop this house on here. It's going to be so beautiful. It's like, no, 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 no. You can't do that square footage. The county is not going to allow that because your lot coverage ratio exceeds this percentage rate. And that's a big bummer. So these are due diligence things that's a little more technical. Something like that should be really done with a contractor, because a regular individual out there who hasn't done this, isn't really familiar with calculating lot coverage ratios and things like that. People are smart. You can do it. County is very helpful across the board. Fairfax County, Arlington, Alexandria. If you pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I'm interested in such and such lot, can I build a certain square footage home on there? And they'll help you out. They'll say, well, do you want a garage? Do you want da, da, da? You can actually sit down with them for 30, 40 minutes, and they'll spell that out. So this is a really important thing. Number of bedrooms, bathrooms. So this applies to lots that don't have any utilities, no public sewer. And the reason why the number of bedrooms matters is because the septic system that you put on that lot is going to only accommodate certain number of these, right? So when you're thinking about, okay, I want this sort of square footage home and lot and things like that, is that actually going to be able to support that? But the square footage is not the only thing. There's soil studies and absorption and blah. There's lots of stuff that goes into it. But again, we only have 1 hour. So I just want to make sure that people, are aware of these things. Number of garages, can I put an accessory dwelling unit in there? So then that's another thing. You're putting more hard surface in the lot. Is it possible to put an accessory dwelling unit maybe on top of the garage or standalone by itself? So the in-laws can come in, stay there, or you can house hack. It's called house hacking, and rent it out and things like that, cash flow it, so forth. So farm animals, some people in Leesburg, right, or maybe closer, like to have farm animals on their lots. So if a homeowner comes and says, listen, horses are big in this area, I want to have 2 or 3 horses, or the rules and regulations in those areas going to allow me to have a barn and horse and things like that. Obviously, no HOA if that happens, maybe. And most importantly, is this going to be a forever home? Is this individual going to stay there forever? Or are they just going to live there until the kids go to college and then they're going to move off? Or maybe they retire because, they're older and they want to move to another region. And so maybe this is not someplace that they're going to stay. So that has budget implications, right? If it's a forever home, then they're probably willing to put more money in it so that they'll never do construction again, potentially, right? So any questions?
Is it better to have an HOA or to not have an HOA? One building.
That's a good question.
What's the pros and cons of having an
I
HOA?
mean, HOA is nice. I've seen really nice HOAs, and they keep the neighborhood pristine and uniform, and they make sure that those HOAs actually make sure that these homes keep their values because they're cared for uniformly, right? And then I've seen other HOAs that, well, they don't do anything, but then they're a really big pain because people can't do additions and things like that. So it's pros and cons, right? If you have an area where you want to have, for example, farm animals, but then the HOA is against it, but the state and county allow it, then that's something that you need to be aware of. So if there is a HOA, and someone wants farm animals or something like that, just they need to contact them and make sure it's doable. Good question. Any other questions? No? Okay. Okay. So those are the considerations, right? And then here it's going to get a little technical. Sorry, I've put a lot of, as my friends say, palabras in this slide. So words. I think people in general need to be aware of it. This is why, again, we do these things, because the buyer needs to be informed on these things. So when you go to buy a lot, it's not like some popular TV shows where they go somewhere in Waco, Texas, and they see this lot. Oh, this is beautiful. I want to go ahead, build this, wonderful home and stuff like that. Let's buy it. This lot is beautiful. There's a lot of constraints and things that people have to be aware of so that you don't have costly surprises. Remember the lot coverage that I mentioned? Those are surprises that are very costly. And you'll see it in the tax assessments where the property kind of goes like this from hand to hand to hand. That's because people have not done that sort of research. So lot constraints, there's grade. Have you guys heard of grade? Grade is dirt. So what's the grade like, right? Is the grade like this? That's not ideal. Ideal lot should be really level, right? It should be typically higher than maybe surroundings. Why? We've seen a lot of floods lately. So it's ideal for it to, not have flood water go towards the house. Everything is fixable in construction, but there's a cost associated with it. So if you can avoid those costs, then that's ideal. Then there's setbacks. Realtors know what setbacks are. You guys know what setbacks are? We get it through life. So if you get a certain lot, right, zoning will come and say, listen, due to a lot of things, right, if this is your lot, usually because of safety, right? So if a home catches on fire over here, they don't want the fire to go from home to home to home. So what they'll say is, okay, each zoning designation, it's how far you need to be from the sides of the lot, right? There's something, it's a building restriction line, and you can build whatever you want inside of that box, but you got to be away. So, yeah. And so a corner lot has different setbacks than a lot that's in the middle of stuff. And sometimes a corner lot is not ideal because the setbacks are more constrained sometimes. It depends and it varies. And if you have, like in Virginia, there's a code for zoning and it says, okay, these zoning designations have these assigned setback numbers associated with them. So if you have a R1, R2, R5, R8, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole document out there that talks about it. So those are the rules, but then each locality, those neighborhoods and things like that, they can have slight variations. And so this is why it's important that if you have any questions as a future landowner, homeowner, or whatever, you guys call the counties and ask for engineer of the day and say, listen, I'm interested in doing such and such without any contractors or anything like that. Everyone here can do that homework. You just pick up the phone, talk to zoning, tell them what you want to do, and they'll walk you through all that.
So in the traditional neighborhood, can the HOA stop you from building a modern home?
Always consult your HOA first, always, and ask them.
They have the right.
Absolutely. What they say is law. So people say that, oh, HOA is just a group of people, but it's kind of like this. You have the HOA, you have the county, you have the state, and all this is legally respected and binding. So if the HOA says something, then that can create a stop work. And so you always want to make sure you prevent all. This is part of the reason why we're sharing all this, so that you don't experience anything like that. So you're doing your homework, you're educated. So I recommend you always talk to the HOA first, but yes, they can stop it. Any other questions? Okay, yes, it's technical. It's one of my favorite things because it can do one of the most damage in addition to the floodplain. So in Fairfax County, Arlington, and other regions, we have something called resource protection areas. And so there may be a lot for sale, 6 acres, looks beautiful, but there's a creek going down there, right? You pull up the GIS system and you see this nice big green thing. I'm going to show you a picture of somebody who wanted us to acquire this lot, saying, oh, it's a beautiful lot, come acquire it. I'll show you that that took one of the lots completely out, couple of acres. So these are things that and again, these are some of the tool things that we need to go over, and that'd be fun. I think pulling up a lot and pulling out the GIS and kind of going over and maybe do group activities and stuff like that. We'll do that in the future. So that's it. And resource protection area is a protected area that the county said you can't build there. Unless per acre, you give us thousands of dollars and we take that RPA out. So it is possible to take a RPA out. It is also possible to take a floodplain out. But it's really, this one's more difficult. This one, you have to get engineers and have them come do studies and things like that to say, okay, if this is my property line and 60% of it is in the floodplain, is that really true? Is that actually, can I eliminate it? We had a client come to me, it was 1/4 acres in Alexandria. It was selling for crazy. It was maybe 300K. Like, no, was it 200K? It was crazy. I was like, there's something wrong here. Because it was like 1.4, 1.6, 1.8, you know? So then we looked at it, and sure enough, like 60% of it was covered by RPA or floodplain. It was floodplain. So I called them immediately. I said, hey, do you really want to buy that? Because I would buy it. Why? Because all the periphery of it, they had removed that. And so if he had bought that property, I don't know if he did, we should call him, then that property value would have jumped by 200, 300K immediately after the county said, okay, I've removed this from your lot. So it's important to see these. It's important to see the overall picture, and I'll show you, because it can bite you, but it can also turn out to be a gold mine, potentially. We don't have too many of them in this area, but they are, where a RPA floodplain designation is there, but the county just didn't, they just don't do it. It's up to the homeowner to do it, you know? And then other constraints we talked about, utilities, septic drain fields. This can be a real bummer, septic drain fields, because if you have a lot that has, you know, no public sewer, then this is gonna take significant real estate, you know, to put that drain field there. You can't put a playground, you can't put anything on top, you can't even light a campfire. So then you have a big field over there, and then the vicinity of this to wells and things like that, that all matters too. So again, this is really technical, I think, but you know, just, I think people need to be aware of that. Subdivision constraints. So someone may bring a lot and say, okay, you can take this lot, you can go ahead, subdivide it to this, this, this. You call the county's like, oh, it's this lot. Okay, I see similar things. Yeah, you may do that. But there may be local covenants that say, no, there can only be 10 lots in this subdivision, right? And the county may not know that either. So how do you do that? That's a title search. So you got to search the title, the deeds, and see what's going on in that neighborhood, because, you know, then you'll end up with a lot that you can't subdivide. Potential future eminent domain. How many of you have seen eminent domains in this area? We had one big one, 66, right? And so you got to watch out for expansions. There was talk in Sterling about bringing a new bridge over. Do you guys remember that? I think they trashed that one. It was right before 28. It was between Dulles, I think it was between Dulles Town Center and 28, I think. I could be wrong. But we had clients who were interested in buying lots over there. They said, oh, this is beautiful. It's near the river. Like, whoa, hold on. Move away. Because that could disappear. And you don't always get the market price, right? The government will come, they'll buy the lot from you, but you may not get the full market price. How do you know about this, eminent domains and stuff like that? How do you find that out? If I say, you know, you're buying a lot, how would you find that? Just guess. What's the first thing? Where would you look? Who would you talk to? City planner? That's a good one. the local realtor. There's lots of blah, blah, blah going around, right? So if you can, not always, the local broker in that region should be fairly informed, right? But the city planner is a big one too, yeah. I mean, that's the ultimate, really. The comprehensive plan and whatever. So, and always, if you buy a lot, have a study period in there. Always have a study period. How long should that study period be? I would say 60 days. Why? There's one big thing that could stop you from actually being able to build on there. One big thing that actually has kept me in the past awake and not being able to sleep. And I'll share that in a little bit. And just doing a preliminary title search. You know, sometimes it takes 48 hours, but just even before going to settlements, right? Do some sort of preliminary title search. So JDM title, I send stuff to Angela on a regular basis. I say, hey, Angela, what do you think of this? She'd say, okay, I'll be back in 48 hours. So, you know, she keeps me informed. Any questions? Yeah, so the study period, I would keep it at 60 days. Okay, here's an example of something. We talked about RPA. So someone came to us and said, listen, I have these lots. I want to go ahead, subdivide them. What do you think, right? Spec investment build. So this is essentially, sorry, it's gobbledygook, but the GIS that I talked about, this is all public data. It's all available to you at your fingertips. This came from Fairfax County, the JADE system, J-A-D-E. And you go in there, you pull up the GIS, you put the address in there, and there's layers. You can type resource protection area, you can type floodplain, you can type contour. So these are contours. These tell you what the slope of the lot is, right? So you have 355, 340, 325. You can see the slope is going down, right? So these contours, they show you the slope. The tighter they are, you know, the steeper it is. And these are flat areas that they have existing homes in. Does this look like an ideal lot? Which were the P's are proposed. The P's are proposed. The E's are existing. So they want to build something here. They want to build something here, and something here. Well, yeah, here. And so these are all in sloped areas. You're going from 305 here to 265. That's a significant drop. Here you have a valley, right? A hole in the middle over here at the end of it. This one, it's almost completely in RPA. You can't even touch that, right? But they wanted to sell that lot. So, for some reason, it makes this green. This stripe thing is the RPA. So this was their proposed lot, and almost 100% of it is in RPA. So this is why you need to be very cognizant about this. You know, someone just coming and dropping a lot there saying, hey, buy it, you know, you got to make sure you do your own homework or have a nice contractor next to you who can do that homework for you. But beautiful area. I mean, top notch. It's just the lots are not ideal. What else did I want to cover here? Any questions? Oh. Okay, so we talked about financing. I'll just quickly go through this. We're not talking about financing here. There's different options. Again, as a homeowner, as a realtor, it's, you know, there's certain things that we've dealt with that were, they had constraints, and then there's other options that kept our, you know, surroundings more open so we could wiggle better as contractors. So there's the option of acquiring the land and doing construction. So you go to a broker and you say, listen, I want to get a loan to buy the land, and with that loan, I want to do an acquisition. That's really nice because you only go and pay that settlement fee once. The issue with that is that the clock starts ticking. And that's a problem because you haven't pulled your permits yet. You know, there's design that has to be finalized and things like that. So unless there's, I mean, this I think would be ideal for non-custom designs. Custom designs take time. There's an iterative process that you have to go through, and just there's some thought and inspiration and ingenuity that has to go to it. And with this, if you have a time constraint, then that's a problem. The other option is acquire the land and then later get a construction loan. And so that's usually better because that gives you a little gap, right? Where you can go in and do your design, pull your permits. Once you have your permits, get your construction and go. Get your construction loan, get your funding and run with it. And that way, if there is any delays in permits or anything like that, it doesn't matter. You're not paying a penalty at the end of the loan due date, right? Because when you get that loan, the lender says, hey, so you're telling me this thing's going to take 12 months to finish, but then, you may have permit delays or whatever, and you're getting to the 12-month and you're only at drywall and finishing the drywall, and every month after that, you have to give the bank a penalty fee for not finishing. So our ideal scenario is this one. And then when you get these loans and things like that as a homeowner, what's your assurance that that contractor is delivering? Well, the bank has inspectors, right? Again, some of you know this, some of you don't, but bank comes on a regular basis at certain milestones, ideally, and they'll see, okay, how much of the work was completed? Here you go, Mr. Contractor or Mrs. Contractor. There's your money, carry on. And this is really important. This should not be interfered with, because if funding is ever interfered with, then that could potentially lead to a stop work, and that's costly. And you must find a reputable banker, lender, who is aware of construction. If you just go to, which is what we've experienced before, our clients have gone to certain lenders who don't do quite too much construction. They don't understand the cadence. They don't understand the schedule of how things are done. So they may bundle, I don't know, grading with tiling or something. I mean, that's an extreme thing, but they'll take two different things and they'll bunch them into each other, and you can't modify that, that schedule. And that's a big problem, because then the contractor is essentially becoming your lender because they're extending credit to you for covering that gap that's in the draw schedule. And cash, obviously then it's in your hands. You don't have this protection over here. You can always hire a third-party inspector to come and inspect the contractor and make sure things are getting done. Again, you need more careful due diligence here, making sure things are done and disbursements are done effectively. And it's more flexible for the contractor too, because they can say, okay, I finished this, let's go. Questions? Any other scenarios? No? Yes?
Do you have like local banks that provide that?
We do. We have several that we've worked with. We can share with you that list. They've been amazing. That's why they're on our list. So we'll share that. Natalie, if we can, we'll put it in that page and then share it with the. Okay, so picking a contractor, right? Again, this is not advertising, this is education, right? The design, this is really important, right? You sat down with your partner in the earlier slides, you talked about, okay, this is what we want to have, blah, blah, blah. Maybe you actually went to a contractor site and looked at some inspirations, but there's different sorts of design. There's a fully custom, there's semi-custom, and then there's prefabricated. And there's pros and cons with all of them. I'm not going to cover them right now, but this thing comes into play really nicely when you have places in Arlington, in Alexandria where there are lot constraints and you want to maximize the amount of money that you're putting in that lot so that you're making use of every inch of that lot. Semi-custom, it's like, some of our contractors here who they build a subdivision and they'll say, okay, you want an island here or there, and they'll put it there, or you want a balcony, you don't want a balcony, things like that. You want this color siding, they call that semi-custom. That's not custom at all. They're giving you options. It's kind of like buying a Mercedes and then saying, yes, I want it with this thing or not. And then just make sure they have the staffing and track record. Don't just go with empty promises. Yeah, we can do this, right? What kind of projects have they done before? And have they done this thing in other similar lots? This sort of similar design and things like that? What does their internal process look like, right? If you go through the entire selection process and you say, okay, these are the types of tiles, faucets, finishes, electrical, blah, 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 that I like, these type of windows. And then we're getting in the mix of it before ordering, you change your mind. You say, no, this latest, greatest thing just came out. I want to go with this thing. Do they have a nice change order process that you go through to make sure that things are effectively documented? So when you're down the road trying to buy this thing, the contractor doesn't screw up and buy the wrong thing. Right? So make sure they have nice policies and so forth and processes. And they're going to be there for the long run, right? So that comes with interviewing people and talking to previous clients and things like that. Hey, when your faucet started leaking, did that contractor actually come back and fix the leak? Or did they say, no, that's it, I made my money, I'm gone? And they have to know local code. I put these two there. These are really important. A lot of people hire not contractors, but architect firms from over the internet, other regions, and they're not always aware of local code here. And that's a problem. The other issue is they're not really aware of local pricing. So they're doing these designs for you, these extravagant things, but then in the end, when you pass it up to bid, the contractor says, no, 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 your budget and design don't match, they don't align, and that's a big bummer. We've seen that a lot in the past decade. The ideal choice is a design build. Now, we're a design build, I'm not advertising us, but why is a design build ideal? Because you have the team there that does the actual build, and they're doing the design. So when you come together, there's an iterative thing, right? They say, okay, I want to add such and such thing, features and functions to the home. And then, a week later, the price comes out. It's like, oh, okay, well, maybe I can't do that. Maybe I need to take this away. Or no, I have this budget. Okay, let's add this because it looks like I can fit this thing. And so you have the synergy there to do something like that. How are we doing on time, guys? Okay. Okay. Questions? Is this too much? I don't know. So there is, let's say you've hired the contractor, you went through that due diligence, right? You hired your contractor, and this is not like a standard process, right? This is how we operate. And it can slightly vary, but it's a general process that contractors follow, right? And this is kind of driven by local land development divisions in local counties and things like that. And, so they typically follow this process. So you hire the contractor says, okay, let's get going. You sat down with your partner, you want all these must-haves. It looks like you did good due diligence. You bought this lot. It looks decent. There isn't any crazy RPAs or floodplains or anything like that in there, any crazy easements. The setbacks look okay. So we're going to have a rough idea here of what this, if this is your lot, what this rectangle is going to look at. And then we'll just do a rough elevation of how many, not elevation, layouts, right? 2D ceiling looks of the layouts of, what the bedroom looks like, what the layout looks like. This is very high level here, right? And we keep it high level for a reason, because it may change, right? Even though we've done our due diligence, even though, I mean, when you do a 60-day study, this is actually fairly clear. It's 100% almost. Because in the 60-day study, you actually do something like this, so that the thing that you want, that design and the inspirations that you had and things like that, can actually be done. But so you do a high design. Civil engineering says, okay, you want the rectangle there, and maybe you want another rectangle for your garage. Okay, let's go do the calculations. Let's see how much water is running off. Let's see what sort of water retention we need to do. So if water is if this much volume of water is going through your lot, how much of it do we need to catch and slow down locally so that we don't have sediment going into the Chesapeake Bay? That's the main thing. That's one of the main reasons why we have that lot coverage, so that we don't have runoff and stuff that impacts the Chesapeake Bay, because if the Chesapeake Bay gets impacted, then the fisheries and wildlife and whatever gets impacted, and that's not good. And then engineering figures out, how many trees, shrubs, blah, blah, blah. So they do their stuff. There's soil studies, does the soil work? And then all this comes back to the architect. Architect says, oh, okay, it looks like based on what I've done, the rough rectangle that I gave you, it looks like that's doable. There's some back and forth with the civil. And so I'm going to start developing my detailed design. Now that I have my rectangles, I'm going to work on what this interior of this thing is going to look like, what features and functions it's going to have, what the outside is. So then for them, once it comes here, it's go time, right? Finish that architectural plan. Civil engineering will say, okay, now that we're happy, we're going to file for grading permit. And that grading permit, I'm not going to bore you with that. That's just a package that says, the lot needs to have these sorts of contours. It needs to be shaved like this. It needs to have this sort of water retention. This many additional trees need to be planted, and things like this sort of protection needs to be put around the periphery of the home, so that it captures sediments and things like that. So that typically takes 3 months. It may take 4 months, depending on the county and so forth, but usually 3 months. So that's a long lead item. That's why that loan that I mentioned earlier, it's ideal to get a construction loan later. Acquire the lot, get a construction loan later, because there's a big wild card over there. This takes typically 6 to 8 weeks based on our experience with Fairfax County, Arlington, and so forth. So, any questions here? Okay, now you have these 2 permits, then what? This is a big one. What if you bought a lot, but you don't have enough water in it, in the well? And so as part of that due diligence, the 60-day study, it takes some time to get a drill to that lot. They're busy, right? They're addressing people who are running out of water first. They're addressing emergencies. It takes time to bring that drill on the lot, drill a hole in the lot, and see how much water you're actually getting in that lot, right? The health department, the county requires certain gallons per minute to be available. Some lots, they may have 900, yeah, right, 9 gallons per minute, which is excellent. Some lots may have 2 or 3 gallons per minute, right? And so if you don't have water on the lot, your lot, may be in jeopardy. But I haven't experienced anything in the past decade, or heard from anyone where they tried digging, and there was no water. You have to get the GPMs, right? You got to get the GPMs, and then in parallel, you're doing your grading permit. You've filed for the grading permit. It's gone to the government. There's a review cycle. They send you comments. You address them. And then once you got into a certain point, you go have filed for the build permit, right? You don't wait for this thing to get done. Once you're at this point, you have a fairly good idea that, okay, I'm good. You know, then you go ahead, file for your build permit and continue forward. In parallel, you know, you're working with your utilities. If you don't have utilities, you got to get cranking on these. These have a long lead time. Getting electrical gas to the property, they can be fairly expensive. And there's planning and design that has to happen in the local utility to bring these to the lot. So then what happens here? This gets really exciting at this point. I start getting really excited. Why? Because there's actual action happening on the lot. So the lots that you see out there, you know, that have funding and whatever, they're okay, but they're just sitting there. It's because this is happening, right? The permitting process and the county allowing you to move forward. So you guys have seen, you know, these silt fences, the black fences around the property. The purpose of that is to capture sediment so that it doesn't seep into, you know, periphery areas and eventually go to the Chesapeake Bay. And so sediment controls go in once we have our build permit. Then we meet with the government and we say, hey, this is our intent. We share the grading permit with them. And they say, okay, all your sediment control is good. And then, as we say in Spanish, dale. We continue and break ground, and that's exciting times.
Studies.
Okay.
Well, utilities, what's the approximate timeframes and costs?
It can vary.
So,
Yeah.
just have an idea,
Cost-wise.
cost-wise.
So this depends on linear footage, right? And the type. So there's stuff like super silt fence, there's regular silt fence. Super silt fence is the one with metal backing that you see. It's like a chain linked fence behind it. Those are more expensive. Again, this varies, and I can refer you to some of our wonderful friends that do this work day in, day out. As a general contractor, we sub that out to other ground people who work on it. So get with me afterwards, and then I can provide you with their contact info. Utilities, during COVID, the gas company just never got back to us. How long was it? 6 months? 7 months? Yeah. And then they realized their mistake, and now they're very responsive. I'm not gonna say who it is, but I'll let you guys guess. And so it's okay to start these way ahead of time. Could you start this during due diligence? Yeah, you could. 90 days is good. You could do a 120-day, you know, study, depending on what needs to be done. And site work includes this stuff too, and the grading and digging out the basement and things like that.
You do a feasibility studies that take into account?
So I kept it kind of high level. I could get really technical in the slides, but this should be in the feasibility, absolutely. Because no matter what, you're going to hit water. I've heard of 900 feet going down, you know, and in Fairfax, we had 70 feet, and the water was okay. We were near a golf course, so there was a funny smell to it, but we ended up getting a water filtration system, a purification system, and things like that, and did a testing afterwards, and the water was perfectly good. So this is important because this can slow stuff down. So if you have to go dig, you know, just to get to an ideal location for GPM, because at 900 feet, you could get water, but maybe you don't have the GPM. So then they have to go try another aquifer, you know, and that takes time and it's costly. So, yeah. And maybe, I don't know, with the seller, you can negotiate. If you don't get the GPMs, you can say, hey, you got to bring your price down. I didn't get it at this point. We need to do some more digging. And then that reduction in price may pay for additional drills. So, and it takes time to get these guys. So it's always good to plan this ahead of time so they bring their drills. And there aren't too many of them in our area. They're closing their businesses. So good questions. Any other questions?
My question is, do we need to go through every single step? You know?
I don't know what those steps are, but you and I can talk about it offline afterwards and see if we can be of assistance or we refer you to others that can help you. Absolutely. But this is for you, so you're educated, you know. And it's awesome that you're doing it. It's a wonderful learning experience, you know, even though it may be painful. But that's awesome that you're doing that. All right, so we're almost done, guys. The build cadence. So for those folks who aren't familiar with how construction goes, this is the general cadence. So I told you I get excited when we get our permit and we do our pre-construction with the government and the government gives us the thumbs up. We start breaking ground. What's breaking ground mean? There's no earthquakes. It's just, you know, we remove dirt, we start disturbing dirt, right? We grade, we do a rough slope, and I'll show you some pictures of what we do, or typical contractor does. We dig out the basement, we store the soil in certain areas designated by the grading permit. We start digging the foundations and footers. So foundation is what holds your wall. It's a flat foot, right? That goes in, and then we build your basement walls on top of that on wonderful soil that we've already tested, and we know that it's gonna hold that weight. And then once the foundations and footers are in, we start framing, roofing, and siding. And those have to be done quickly. Now this can sometimes wait, and it can happen later, siding. But these two, absolutely, framing and roofing, when you hire a contractor, those should go in quickly. Why? Because we don't want that wood to sit in water, in rain, snow, and whatever. So that has to get covered quickly. Even though in the lumber yard, the lumber does sit and is exposed to rain and things like that. On our job site, because we've bound them together, we don't want them to get wet, those connections. And so we install the windows, and then now, with new homes, there's new rules, regulations, and code that say you have to have an efficient home. And so there's some additional costs that come with that and processes, but you essentially have to make sure that you have, you know, appropriate insulation and that the home is airtight. And this is a whole nother talk that we're gonna do in December about home efficiency so that you guys are aware, and we'll talk about, you know, mechanical systems and things like that. So if you guys are interested in that, you can join that one. And there's something that's called blower door testing. Have you guys heard of blower door testing? No? Have you guys been ever to a construction site, I don't know, and you see a big red fabric in front of the front door with a fan in it? Ever? No? Okay. That's called blower door testing. What they essentially do is they seal the home, they pressurize the home, and they test it for leaks. And they'll go around and they'll see where those leaks are, and this is the ideal time to go ahead and remediate it. There's no insulation, no nothing, so blower door testing is pretty much required across the board in Northern Virginia for new homes. And you have to get a little certification that says, hey, what's the number? It has to be lower than 3. Lower than 3 air exchanges per hour. So a typical home has a lot of air exchanges per hour, right? The fresh air coming in your home, it takes, I don't know, for a typical home, I don't know what it is, but new homes, older homes are leaky, right? So during winter, if you have a 1950s home, you can definitely feel, you know, the wind coming through the home. And so the purpose of this is to make the home tight so that that doesn't happen. So anyway, that happens there. Why there? Because it's the easiest place to go ahead fix because it's exposed. And then we have trades, plumbing, electrical. Here, there's another mandate, duct testing has to happen. So we pressurize the ducts and we make sure that there's no leaks in the ducts and so forth. And if there is, it has to get fixed then. We run to this. We do our darndest to get to this location because this is a home run. Why? We want to get to this. We want to get insulation in quickly. Once we get here, it's home run. No more, there's inspections associated with these. So this slows you down. You may lose a week, doing inspections for all these particular milestones. But the last essential milestone is over here, the second to the last. And so once we get here, no more inspections. Go, 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 right? We run fast. Every time we do an inspection, we got to tell the crew, hey, hold on, we're having an inspection. We lose a day. And here we're, working, now that framing's done, trades are done, we do drywall, paint, trims, flooring, cabinets, landscaping, and then we do a final inspection and close everything. And most importantly, final water quality test. The health department looks at that. So if your water quality is problematic, it's possible that they may not give you a certificate of occupancy, and you may be required to put in a water filtration system. So, and just quickly, we're kind of over. So, this is kind of a quick cadence of it. New home in Fairfax, we did some rough grading. There's some stockpile of soil there. Basement walls. This is, the drill that I was talking about. And yay, we hit water at 70 feet, I think it was. This particular home, they wanted insulation under the basement slab, even though it's below grade. They wanted additional protection. We did that. There's framing, right? There's trades, electrical going in, and then we get to drywall, flooring, finish, home run. That's it. Any questions? Was that too technical? No? All right. Well, thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, this is our email address. Everyone on our team sees this. And I do have a handout. And this is just something, the thought process that we talked about, construction.
Well, what is the total from buying the property to completing it?
Duration? Yeah, that all depends on, sorry.
What would be like the range of-
If, let's say, if everything is in order, right? A home should be done within 10 months. It shouldn't take 12, 14 months, right? It's not rocket science. If you have everything scheduled appropriately, boom, 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 you're done. It could take shorter than that. It could take 9 months. The big long lead item is permits. How long are permits? So if you're doing a grading plan and things like that. So from the time that you have the build permit until completion, if everything is done appropriately, I'd say anywhere between 9 to 10 months, it should be done, ideal. Yeah.
Experience, how long does it take from getting the land? I guess I'm going backwards instead of from the land to building, permit wise and everything.
Okay, so again, that depends on a case-by-case basis, right? So the design matters, right? If this is like your home, it sounds like it's an investment home, right? And so with an investment home, you may be able to go grab a design somewhere, so that it goes faster, or you can work with somebody who can put it together fast locally. That design process can take anywhere. Some people are really fast. Some people, it may take them 2 or 3 months to lock down the design, right? The design is important because that's gonna, yeah. So if you have so you've acquired your lot, let's say you have your design, right? The permit process, I would give it 3 months ideally, the permit process. It could be 4 months, for a grading permit and build permit. And then from that, you're golden to do construction. And, groundbreaking could be 4 months after acquisition, if everything is ideal, right? If we have to do about 10 months. Now, I bought a spec home. We bought a spec home, a property to do spec construction on in Alexandria. Alexandria has really bad soil. So we had to do additional soil studies. That may put you back a few weeks because you got to bring an excavator, you got to do soil samples. Soil samples going to laboratory take about a week, and then the soil engineer takes another week to write their report and stuff like that. So these all add up. It could add additional month or two to construction. So it all depends on the lot, how it is, and so forth. And some of these assessments, depending on county, they actually give you the soil state also. They'll say in there on the county website, this is good soil or this is poor soil and things like that. So if you see poor soil, then you kind of know, you may have to do additional soil studies. And those things can't be ignored. They have to be done, the studies, just because we want buildings that'll last for over 100 years. So that's, the right thing to
So
do.
is it more advantageous to, when building a new home, buy a lot with no house? Or buy a lot with a house and then do demolition and then build a new one? And then my second question on that is, do you guys ever also find us properties as well?
There's a whole group of us. We work, I'm a agent with Spring Hill. And so their eyes and ears are out there. They're aware of a bunch of lots. Stuff comes to us directly. My friend contacted me and said, my mom died. I want to move to El Salvador. I'm like, okay, will you buy my house? Okay, I bought it. And, or other agents come to me directly. They'll say, hey, this is off market. We got to go. Boom, boom, boom. Get it. And so if you want to build a new home, it depends where, right? Say like you want to build in Arlington. We see other builders going in there and they'll tear that home down and they'll build a new one. And we think that is horrible for two reasons. It brings more cost and it adds more duration to your project. What we like to do in those regions is leverage the existing structure, go up, bump out, and things like that, but stay within certain limits so that we don't have to get a grading permit. And then it's essentially a new home. We're using the old structure. In terms of buy a land with a home on it and buy a land with no home on it, there's the demo cost of it. If there's a home on there, most likely there's utilities there that you can reuse. If that home was never touched, if that lot was never touched, then it may be that you may have to bring those utilities. So it may be 60, 80, 100K more to bring utilities to that lot.
How much do we need to like that?
Again, the win comes from the acquisition. The cheaper you get that bad boy,
So you
You know.
wait and buy.
exactly.
Kind of slowly change into a newer modern types in the area. I don't see that much.
Statistics show that classic colonial sells the most. Classic, more traditional homes, they just sell. We see people doing a hybrid, what would you call it? Like 64-2, what would you call that? Not conventional, but modern farmhouse with a flair of colonial, but not too modern, like those. So that's okay. You have metal roofs maybe on top of the garage and the front porch, but you still have shingle roofing. You have some nice stone on it with hardy board going around, and maybe you'll just throw in some black windows. Yeah. I mean, you see that in all these neighborhoods. You go in, look at Pimmet Hills, right? It used to be all Sears homes, Rambler, single level, and now there's all sorts of modern. It has to be done by measure, some of these neighborhoods are just ruined, I think.
They don't build subdivisions like 100 homes like modern.
Modern, they do it. They've done it in McLean and they do it. There's pockets of it. Yeah. And so then people can opt to go there and keep other stuff more classic. So cool. Any other questions? All right, guys, appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you very much.